Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Evil Dungeon Master here, Vince. Hopefully you're doing well out there. I know I am. Today's video is going to become a request from one of my viewers or listeners here on the channel. It's from DM Dan. He asked us to look at one of the, I don't know, underused, sometimes used, never used, AD&D book that TSR printed, and that's Manual of the Planes, as I have right here. You can see mine's in very good condition, as the spine is an orange spine and it actually is good. You can see the yellowing from the actual pages of it just sitting on the shelf. I don't know if that's coming through, but there's yellowing here. That's about the only damage, and I've never really used this book that often except for maybe referencing Manual the Planes if I needed it. I believe there's an alignment chart in the back here that kind of helps you with alignments. That's about all I've really used of the book. I don't really think I've used it too much in depth, but we're going to talk about it in this segment now. And this is just part one of part two when it comes to talking about this book. So if you ever run games in the prime material plane, this book is your invitation to break that habit. The Manual of the Planes is not a monster book. It is an adventure, kind of. Maybe not an adventure. It's a referee's guide how reality works once you step off the map. It lays out a structure of existence itself, inner planes, outer planes, ethereal, astral, and how they all kind of connect to one another. If you ever wondered where elements really come from, where demons really live, and what happens when spellcasters push past mortal limits, this book definitely answers the questions for you. This book starts by grounding you and explains the prime material plane first. We all kind of know about it, but this book goes into more greater detail of how it actually works and how things work in the prime material plane where we have our adventures. And this matters. It matters to the point that everything else builds out there. Builds outward from there. The inner planes comes next, and then we get air, earth, fire, and water. And they're not just background areas. Each one has their own movement rules, survival rules, issues, complications, combat and stuff. Fire burns constantly. Air changes how flight works. Earth can trap you inside solid matter. Water turns simple travel into a resource problem. These sections tell you how long a character can survive in these environments, what magic changes, and what normal assumptions break when you're playing in this area. From there, the book moves outwards to the ethereal plane. This is one of probably the strongest sections in the book. Ethereal plane is treated like a border world. I want to say border world. Layered, and it's kind of dangerous. Well, we all know that, but this gives it more detail when it comes to danger. You get rules for certain travel, encounters, how magic behaves when reality thins out. It's really interesting to read it. If you have a chance, just sit down and just dive deep into it and read it. It's got some great information in there. And if your players go there, it's a hunting ground for things that notice intruders. Then the astral plane follows that. This is the highway between the worlds. Time behaves differently here. Bodies are left behind. Thought becomes movement. The book explains how characters travel in the astral plane, how silver cords work, and what happens when something goes wrong. This is where your careless and impulsive players could get trapped or stranded forever because of something they do dumb. Then we reach the outer planes. Alignment made physical. These planes are not just moral labels. They are an environment with rules, gravity, magic traits, and native dangers. The book breaks them down so you understand how law, chaos, and good and evil shape reality. This is the foundation that later the setting builds on. Whether they admit it or not, this is what they do. One thing the book does very well is spell interaction. There is a massive spell summary that tells you what works, what fails, and what changes plane by plane. And I think that's kind of important to read that over and make sure you have that down as a dungeon master. And even a player, you may want to read that as well. Maybe, I don't know. Depends on how your table works. Summoning becomes very risky in these areas. Fireballs do not behave like fireballs. They kind of will either amplify or change. If your players always rely on magic as a solution, this book teaches you how to make the planes really push back on them. After the spell interactions, the book quietly and just kind of slowly shifts into something even more important. It teaches you about consequences, not moral ones, mechanical ones. Every plane imposes pressure on resources, pressure on assumptions, and pressure on player habits. This is where a lot of the tables kind of stumble, because AD&D usually trains players to expect consistency. Same gravity, same time, same magic. The plane removes that safety net when it comes to the rules. Movement is definitely a big deal here. The book explains how walking, flying, and swimming or even drifting changes depends on where you are in this book. If you can walk for hours and you never reach the horizon and never reach your destination, or you could step once and become somewhere else entirely. If you treat planar movement like dungeon corridors, your game will feel flat and boring. This book tells you not to do that. Even if they never say it out loud, survival rules matter more than combat rules once you leave the prime material area. Breathing, temperature, pressure, exposure. Some planes do not care if you are heroic. They care if you are prepared. Elemental fire does not negotiate. Vacuum does not scale to your level. This book gives you the tools to say, yeah, you can go here, but there's going to be a cost. Encounters are another quiet strength of this book. The tables are not there to flood the party with fights. They exist to remind you that the planes are inhabited, that there are creatures roaming around that actually live here and you're in their land. There are travelers, there are natives, there are even predators. Things that notice intrusions, like I mentioned before. You are rarely alone and you are rarely welcome to some of these places. Even something as simple as another traveler can become dangerous when alignment perception and planar politics will collide together. So the Ethereal and the Astral sections deserve a little more attention for the referee. These planes are often abused as shortcuts. The book pushes back hard on that idea when it comes to that. Time distortion and vulnerable bodies, silver cords, ethereal curtains, random encounters that do not care about your objective when you're there. These rules exist to make planar travel feel tense, not convenient. If your party treats the astral plane like just like a normal highway or road, this book gives you permission to make you feel like you're crossing into hostile territory when you're walking. Then there is more talk about alignment. This book does not preach, it enforces. Outer planes are shaped by alignment, and that alignment pushes back on visitors. Lawful planes resist chaos, evil planes corrupt or consume, good planes judge. Not with speeches, but with effects. Spell access changes, behavior is noticed, long stays have consequences. This is where alignment stops being a checkbox and starts becoming more of a pressure system. Another overlooked thing about the manual of the planes here is how magic items behave. Some function normally, some weaken, and some become super dangerous. Intelligent items may react to the plane itself. Artifacts draw attention. If your campaign relies heavily on magic gear, the planes force players to think instead of defaulting to bonuses. This book also helps escalate pacing in there. It does not assume that the planar travel is for low-level characters. If you think about it, no low-level character should be traveling to planes unless they really have to. So, it also warns you repeatedly that careless access will end campaigns. This is not a flaw, this is a feature. The planes are an endgame territory unless you deliberately build bridges, protections, and narrative reasons to survive there. So as a referee, this book is not something you read once. It's something you keep nearby. You check when the players ask, can we do this? Can we do that? You check when someone casts a spell they assume will solve a problem. You check it when the party decides to flee reality itself. When the Manual of the Planes, what it really gives you is authority. Authority to say the world is bigger than that small dungeon you just went through. Authority is to say that magic has limits. Authority is to say stepping outside reality has a massive price on whatever you're doing. The authority also gives a weird tone. Once the planes exist as real places with rules, the world stops becoming a safe place by default. Players think twice before opening portals. They ask a lot more and better questions. They start planning again. The book rewards caution and research and preparation, which is something AD&D does better than most people really remember. Another thing about this book that does well is it scales. It'll scale for you. The planes are not level matched. They do not care if the party is ready. They put responsibility back where it belongs. On you as the DM. You decide when the access becomes possible. You decide how much protection exists. You decide whether planar contact is brief, controlled, and rare, or reckless and catastrophic. This book gives you framework, and it's not really a script what to do. It's like a toolbox. It allows you to dip in there and play what we want and use what you want. The planar descriptions themselves are short on story and heavy on function, and that is a strength, I think, when it comes to this book. You're not boxed into someone else's lore. You get environments, traits, dangers, and examples of how to use things. Everything else is yours to invent. That makes this book compatible with almost any AD&D world. Any AD&D edition, I would think, can go into any AD&D edition as far as how things are handled. Whether it is a high fantasy, a sword and sorcery, or something darker, it'll always fit this book. It also reinforces that travel itself is content. Reaching a plane can be an adventure in itself. Leaving it can be harder than arriving. It's usually easier to get there before getting out, as we've seen so many movies and TV shows when it came to those things. Getting lost, delayed, or altered by exposure is part of the experience because it's gonna happen. If players expect planar travel to be a scene transition, this book gives you the tools to slow that down and make it matter. One subtle but important lesson here is restraint. You don't need every plane in play. You only need what you need when it comes to this book. This book works best when you use it sparingly. One plane, one purpose, one problem. Overuse turns the plane into noise. Careful use turns them into legends. This also ties into long-term consequences. Characters who survive planar exposure change. Their reputation changes, their enemies change, things notice them more because they have this kind of attention or mark on them. It's not level-based, it's kind of a narrative thing, and the book supports that without spelling it out exactly for you. From a campaign design point of view, the Manual of Planes is a pivot book. It marks the moment when a game can move from local threats to cosmic ones. Not bigger numbers, just bigger risks, bigger unknowns, the kind that can be solved with a sword swing and a single spell. And that is why this book still matters, not because it explains the planes, but because it teaches you how to treat them. What often gets missed is how the book reshapes player expectations over time. Once the planes exist in your campaign, your world gains depth behind it. Gods are no longer abstract, elementals are not just summoned tools. Outsiders stop feeling like a wandering monster and start feeling like citizens of somewhere else. That shift alone changes how players interact with the settings. Now, I'm going to leave it here for part 1. And when I get back to part 2, I'm going to talk a little bit about building into the world and adventuring into the world, but I wanted to stop it into 2 parts because I don't want it to get too long when it comes to this book. There's a lot to kind of jump into here, but I want to talk about Planar Adventures, how to get characters there without killing them, and how to explore from how do you keep it exploration and turning it into a fun time as opposed to, just a kind of a flash throw in the pan type thing. I think it'll be a lot of fun to kind of explore that, but the Manual of the Planes is a good book. It's just kind of overlooked because a lot of people don't know how to use it. So, I mean, I rarely used it, I want to say. I can remember in my mind using it a few times, referencing it and going to certain planes. I know when I played in campaigns with the great Joe DM, he had this book. This book was generally on the side right underneath his monster manual and DM guide, so he kind of had these things all ready to go. And that's just a tip I need to remember when I'm playing AD&D. This book needs to be here when it comes to higher level characters. Low level characters really shouldn't be going to these planes, though you can. Maybe the Astral plane is part of something. I don't know. With that said, I'm going to head out. Hopefully you have a great day. Don't forget to like, subscribe the channel. You can join the channel by supporting it for 99 cents a month, or go to my patreon.com/theevildm, where you can support me for $1 a month. With that said, I'm going to head out. Keep it original, keep it old school. Good night, and God bless everybody.